Now, many beginner DJs practice for hours, but don't actually find themselves improving very quickly. And that's because they're not focusing on the right skills. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what beginner DJs should actually practice so that every practice session actually moves you forward in a meaningful way. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what you should be focusing on when you sit down with your DJ controller. My name's Blakey, I'm a DMC champion, and I've helped thousands of DJs level up through my online courses and YouTube tutorials. So let's get into it. Now today we're going to be focusing on 4 key practice areas, and they are choosing music that you love so that practice always feels fun, understanding beats, bars and phrases so that all of your mixes sound natural and clean, improving your beat matching skills properly, and how to repeat simple transitions that will go on to be the backbone of all of your DJ sets that you're ever going to play. These here are the skills that are going to help you progress fast as a beginner. Nothing complicated, nothing flashy, just the core skills that really matter. For this video, I'm going to be using the DDJ Flex 4 controller with Rekordbox, but everything that I teach you in this video can be applied to any DJ controller and any DJ software. And by the way, if you're not sure what equipment you need to get started as a DJ, I've created this free beginner DJ setup guide, which shows you exactly what you need to get started with DJing and how everything connects. The link is in the description if you'd like to download it for free. Okay, now let's talk about choosing music properly. And a common mistake I find is that beginners often practice using the same tracks over and over. And this is going to make any practice session feel stale pretty quickly. It's so important that you have a new influx of music every time you practice, just to keep things fresh. Every time you practice, I recommend spending a few minutes finding some new music that you genuinely like. And this will only take 5 minutes. So my preferred method of finding new music is to use streaming services in my DJ software. So over on the left-hand side of Rekordbox, I'm going to go to Beatport. Now I am already logged in to Beatport in Rekordbox, but if you need to log into your account, you will see a login icon right here. Just click that, log in, and you're good to go. So let's say you're into house. What I would do is I would go to the house music genre and then check out the top 100 in Beatport. So all we need to do is click on the genres drop-down menu and then scroll down until we get to house, which is right here. Click this drop-down menu, and then right here we can check out the top 100 house tracks in the Beatport chart right now. This is the simplest way of finding new music in your chosen genre and then taking that music and adding it to your own playlist. And what this will do over time is it will help you build out playlists of music you love, and it's going to keep every practice session fun and exciting. So what I recommend doing is going through the Beatport Top 100. Sometimes I even like to scroll down to number 100 in the chart and start listening from there. And I have found so many underground gems in the Beatport Top 100 by doing this. Because if you listen from number 1, you're just going to be listening to the biggest tracks that everybody already knows and everybody else is already playing in their sets. So I recommend taking some of these tracks, putting them in the decks, taking a listen, and then choosing 5 new tracks that you genuinely like. You don't have to overthink this at this point, but just listen through the top 100 at the start of every practice session, pick 5 tracks, and then put those 5 tracks into your own playlist so that you have them there for the next practice session. And before you know it, you're going to have a ton of new music in your library that you love. So let's make a playlist so that we can start adding tracks to it. So let's go over to the playlist icon here. Click on playlists and then click this plus icon, and let's call this house bangers. And then I'm going to drag this playlist to one of my blank playlist palettes right here. If you don't see the playlist palette window here, all you need to do is click this icon and this will open and close the playlist palettes. Now the playlist palettes window just allows you to have some playlists visible at all times, even when you're browsing through your chosen streaming service. So you can see here I've got my House Bangers playlist, and now all I need to do is go back to Beatport and I can start dragging some tracks from the House Top 100 to my House Bangers playlist. If you want to expand the playlist palettes window, just click this icon here. And now you can actually see inside these playlists. This is a great way of quickly putting tracks from your streaming service into your own playlists. My advice here is to make your playlists genre specific. So when you're adding drum and bass to your library, make a drum and bass playlist. And when you're adding house to your library, make a house playlist. And that's because at this beginner stage of your DJ journey, it's best to stick to one genre of music when you're practicing, just so you don't get overwhelmed with mixing between different genres. I actually have a bunch of videos on my YouTube channel where I show you how you can mix different genres together in the most creative way. But as a beginner, I recommend just sticking to the fundamentals and choosing tracks from the same genre just to make your life easier. Okay, so now that you've chosen a few tracks, the next step is understanding how those tracks are structured. And this next practice drill is really going to help with that. Now, dance music is structured in phrases of 32 beats. Every 32 beats, something in the track will change. That might be some drums are introduced, that might be a bass line comes into the track, or it could be going into a breakdown section, which is where all the drums and all the bass come out and the tension gets released before building up towards another drop, which would be a new phrase. So what I'm going to do with the track on the right deck is I'm going to press play and we're going to count along 32 beats, and at the end of that 32 beats, I want you to take a listen to what changes in this track. I'm going to put a counter on the screen and it will also show you when the new phrases happen in this track. Now, in addition to that, I'm also going to set some hot cues on this track whilst we're counting along with the phrases. And to do this, if you take a look inside Rekordbox, you have this cue button here, which is the quantize button. If I turn this on, this will mean that every time I set a hot cue whilst the track is playing, it will set that hot cue perfectly in time with the track, even if we press it slightly out of time. So this drill is going to allow us to do a few things. Number one, we're going to start to understand the structure of the track. Number two, we're going to get to listen through the track and understand it better, which is going to help us when we start mixing it. And number three, we're also preparing the track by setting hot cues live whilst we're listening back to the track. Now, hot cues are simply markers in the track, which you can then trigger by pressing one of these pads here and jumping to the part of the track where you set the hot cue. Now, here on the DDJ Flex 4, you can see this hot cue button right here. This is lit up, which means we're in the hot cue pad mode. And because all 8 of these pads are not lit, that means we don't have any hot cues set on this track yet. So now let's listen back and I'm going to show you on the screen the beats as we're counting them and the phrases, and we're going to set some hot cues live. Let's take a listen. So we're going to set another hot cue in 4, 3, 2, 1. So now we have a second hot cue. And did you hear the track change? A big kick drum came in. So another hot cue in 4, 3, 2, 1. So now we've got some percussion elements added. And we're going to set another hot cue here, which will be the breakdown section. 4, 3, 2, 1. So now we're going to set one more hot cue, and it's going to be at the drop, which is coming up in a moment. Here we go. 4, 3, 2, 1. So now we're into the drop of the track. So now we've got 5 hot cues. We've listened through the track just to get a feel for it, and we're understanding the phrasing of music. And this is a drill that I recommend spending 5 minutes on during every practice session. And this is going to help you understand the music that you're playing so much better. The next time you load this track into your Rekordbox decks, those hot cues will appear. And this is going to help you out massively the next time you play this track in your sets. Now, when it comes to counting beats and phrases, I can assure you that very quickly you're going to start to pick up on this and understand it instinctively. When you see DJs performing at a club or on a festival stage, I can assure you they're not standing there counting the beats in their head. After a bit of practice, this just becomes second nature, and you start to understand when the next phrase is coming in without having to constantly count along. Now, if you're a beginner DJ and you'd like a clear step-by-step path that shows you exactly what to practice and in what order, then you should check out my brand new Ultimate Beginner DJ course. It walks you through everything you need to know from your first mix right through to confidently DJing. If you'd like to check it out, then just click the first link in the description. So now that you understand phrasing and you've started preparing your tracks, the next skill to practice is beat matching. Now, at this point in the video, some of you might be watching and thinking, why do I need to practice this when the sync button exists? Or why not just match the BPM numbers using the tempo slider and just leave it there? Now, this is partly true, but the problem is sync is not 100% reliable. And in my opinion, as a DJ educator, if I was to tell beginner DJs, just press the sync button, then I'd be doing them a disservice, because there will be moments where a beginner DJ will press the sync button and it just turns their mix into a complete mess. And what is a beginner DJ going to do in that situation? If they don't understand how to beat match properly, then they're not going to be able to fix that mess. And if that happens at a party or even at a gig, it's going to really rock the confidence of that beginner DJ. And in my opinion, it's best to learn how to do it properly right at the start of your journey. Sync will work well most of the time, but I would say 1 or 2 times out of 10, the sync button will just make your mix turn into a train wreck. And the reason for this is that DJ software doesn't get the beat grid of the track right all the time. And sync will only work if your beat grids on your tracks are set perfectly. And I don't think it's a good use of time for a beginner DJ to go through every track in their library and manually set the beat grid correctly, because there are so many skills that you could be spending your time practicing instead. Now, when it comes to beat matching, the most important thing to understand is what the BPM is of the track. Now, BPM stands for beats per minute, and every track in your library will have a BPM assigned to it if you've analyzed your tracks. So right here, the track on the left deck is 126 BPM, and the track on the right deck is also 126 BPM. Now, we can adjust the tempo of these tracks and change the BPM by moving the tempo slider. So if I move the tempo slider, that will increase the BPM of the track on the right deck. And if I move the tempo slider down, that will decrease the BPM of the track on the right deck. For your tracks to mix perfectly together, the BPMs have to match. But even if the BPMs do match perfectly, when you start mixing in this track, you might press play slightly early or slightly late, which would mean that both of your tracks, even though they're the same BPM, they're not aligned perfectly. And as a beginner DJ, you need to know how to fix this. So this next drill is going to help you with that. When that happens, you need to gently nudge the jog wheel forward or backwards to line up the beats again. And this is something that DJs do all the time. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the BPM of the track on the right deck down to around 125. So now take a listen to what happens when I press play on both of these decks with the BPMs slightly different. Right now they sound like they're in time, but take a listen to what happens over time. You can hear the tracks falling out of alignment, and this is what is called a train wreck. And this drill I'm about to show you is going to help you learn how to fix it, because there will be countless times in your DJ journey where you will need to nudge the track forward or backwards to line up the beats again. So this time I'm going to press play on both of the tracks at the same time. And because this track is 1 BPM slower, to fix it, I'm going to need to nudge this jog wheel forward to line up the beats again. And this is something that you're going to have to do continuously, because the track is going to continuously fall out of time. This is a great thing to practice, and trust me, it is a skill that you are going to need all throughout your DJ career. So let's press play on both decks, and you'll see me nudge this track forward to keep the beats aligned. So right now it sounds okay, and it's starting to drift now. So now the beats are aligned again. Just these small nudges is going to keep the two tracks in time. You can actually see the beats on the waveform at the top. So you can actually get a visual guide as to how aligned the beats are. Learning to mix properly from the start is so important because you cannot rely on DJ software 100% of the time, because when it goes wrong, you need to know how to fix it. Okay, the next skill is repeating simple transitions. And one of the biggest mistakes that beginner DJs make is they try too many different techniques too quickly. A better approach is to just repeat simple transitions multiple times. So now let's make sure that the BPMs of both of these tracks match. So let's move the tempo slider until it hits 126. So now we know that both of these tracks are running at the same tempo. And now, of course, we're going to need to use our headphones because now we're actually mixing and we're going to be performing simple transitions. So the headphones plug into the front of the DJ Flex 4, and we're going to start the mix with the track on the right deck. So we need to listen to the track on the left deck in our headphones. And to do that, we press the cue button. So now this deck is being cued in the headphones. And here on the DJ Flex 4, we want to make sure that the headphone mix is set all the way to cue, which is on the left, and then make sure that your headphones are not too loud. So now I can listen to the track on the left deck and line it up before bringing up the volume and introducing it to the audience. The headphones allow us to make sure that the mix is sounding good and clean first. Now I'm going to be using some simple EQ for this transition, and I'm just going to be focusing on the bass EQ right here. So on the deck that contains the track that I'm going to be mixing in, I'm going to turn the bass off. It's always a good idea to mix in your next track with the bass down so that you don't get bass frequencies clashing, which can cause your mix to sound muddy or even distorted. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this track play for 32 beats. And at that point, I'm going to press play on the left deck and I'm going to start lining up the track in my headphones to line up the beats before bringing up the volume with the bass down to mix this track in. And I'm going to slowly, gradually swap the bass from this deck to this deck in a very gradual, subtle way. Because this is quite deep house music, mixing in this way, in my opinion, makes more sense. If I was playing a style of music that was more aggressive, like drum and bass or UK garage, then I would employ the bass swap technique, which is where you swap the bass from one deck to the other and then swap it back. So you're kind of changing the bass line from this track to this track. And this is great for high energy music. But for deeper house like this, I think a very gradual and subtle shift of the bass over time is a better way to go. Now, when I start mixing this track in the headphones, you will see me nudging the jog wheel, like I showed you earlier, to get the track in time. At some point, I may need to nudge the jog wheel back to slow the track down, or I may need to nudge it forwards just to speed it up, just to align those beats. And you'll be able to see those beats at the top of the Rekordbox screen on the waveforms. And then once we've mixed in the track on the left deck, I'm just going to go straight back to the start of the track on the right deck, and I'm going to mix this track back into this one. And I'm just going to repeat mixing from this track to this track, back to this track, and then back to this track. The goal here is for your transitions to sound clean, smooth, and controlled. And the quickest way to achieve this is to just repeat it over and over. So let's take a listen. I can guarantee you that clean transitions like this will make you sound like a good DJ much faster than complicated tricks at this beginner stage. Because you need to understand the core foundational DJ skills before you progress onto anything more complicated. Because core skills like this are the backbone of any DJ set. If you're a beginner DJ and you focus on these 4 skills for your next practice session, you are going to put yourself in a position to help you progress so much faster because you're learning DJing the right way from day one. So now that you know what to practice, the next step is understanding how it all fits together in a real DJ set. So if you're feeling a bit unsure still about how DJing actually works as a beginner, I've made this full step-by-step in-depth guide that walks you through everything you need to know from scratch. So if you want to learn more, I recommend watching this video next.